Number one mistake on Zepbound weight loss and WEGOVY weight loss, my data revealed. Hi friends, I'm Elizabeth, Countess of Shopping. I have lost over 88 pounds the last 16 months of being on a GLP-1 medication. And on today's episode, I've got a new study for you that we're gonna go through talking about the number one mistake. And it's data supported and scientific supported with my co-host, Mr. Freddie, peacefully sleeping. Let's go ahead and dive into the research. As always, I will cite my sources down in the YouTube description. Just click that ... more, and then that will pull up the different studies and everything I'm referencing today. So basically, there was a study done by Blue Cross Blue Shield. I ironically found it through the New York Post, which was interesting, but here's the study from Blue Cross Blue Shield. The study started back in 2014 and went all the way through January 2014, all the way through December 2023. So quite lengthy. It was 169,250 GLP-1 users for weight loss. The study specifically says weight loss and not chronic obesity management, which I think is important to note. 79% of people in this study were women, and they were average age of 45 years old. The majority of the GLP-1 prescriptions for weight loss were provided by a primary care provider over endocrinologist or obesity medicine specialist. Now, the findings of this study I found fascinating. I had previously been on the Oprah show for the Shame, Blame, Weight Loss Revolution. And you can see that, by the way, it replays on Hulu. And then the after show, I talked to Oprah on that particular episode. But on the Oprah show, they had said that the doctors, or the specialists there, had said that 17% of GLP-1 users stopped because of side effects. This study from Blue Cross Blue Shield, with over 169,000 participants, said that more than 30% of patients dropped out of treatment after the first 4 weeks when the dose was being increased to reach targeted dose. 30%, that's a lot. 30% is a lot. It says this is the Blue Cross Blue Shield study, when looking at patients using GLP-1 drugs for weight management, and they're not saying, by the way, chronic obesity management, they're saying weight management. I think that there is an important distinction to note for people who are in the obesity column versus weight management column, but let's continue along with the findings. Their findings, meaning Blue Cross Blue Shield, show that most individuals did not stay on their prescribed treatment a minimum of 12 weeks, suggesting they were unlikely to achieve clinical, meaningful weight loss. Younger patients, ages 18 to 34, were more likely to drop out of treatment sooner. Gender had no impact on dropout rates after the first 12 weeks. Patients who were prescribed GLP-1s by providers with expertise in weight management and obesity, like endocrinologists, like obesity specialists, were more likely to complete that 12 weeks of treatment, which we're going to talk about even more. Individuals who completed the 12 weeks of treatment saw their providers more frequently after the prescription of GLP-1s than those who dropped out of treatment sooner. And people who had health inequities or lived in underserved health regions were also less likely to complete the 12-week treatment, right? Which I also find very, very interesting, which we're also going to talk about as well. So going back over, members with the highest barriers to care were least likely to continue the medication, right? So there's barriers to care like money. If you're they're talking about the inequities of people not having the financial resources, because these medications cost $1,000 if you're paying out of pocket, $1,000 or more per month continuously. That's one. The shortage, so this study was done January 2014 through December 2023. So the shortage, if we go back in time, I have over 250 videos here at Countess of Shopping documenting my GLP-1 experience for my 88-pound weight loss. We saw the Mounjaro shortage at that point had started, but Zepbound had not been FDA approved until, off the top of my head, November 2023 or December 2023. It's all kind of fuzzy in that date, but around that point. So that was not, Zepbound by Eli Lilly was not included in that. WEGOVY had been approved, FDA approval for chronic obesity management treatment. And I'm not certain with WEGOVY if WEGOVY was in shortage at that point. Ozempic for type 2 diabetes definitely was. Now in this study though, they only used GLP-1 drugs that were for weight management. meaning so if it was FDA approval for type 2 diabetes like Ozempic, FDA approval for type 2 diabetes, Mounjaro, were not included in this study. But why did 30% of people stop taking GLP-1s? And that's the number one mistake of people stopping too early. I have a couple of hunches in here. My biggest one was and is the financial component of it, and then also the side effect component. But let's go back over into the study here. Today's video is sponsored by Join Fridays. I absolutely love them and use them for my telehealth provider. I started off on Mounjaro because of the Mounjaro shortage, switched to Zepbound. Because of the Zepbound shortage, switched to Compound. I had poo-pooed compounds for a long time, but because I could not get brand names, I was forced basically to start a compound because I didn't want to be without my GLP-1 medication. We know from other studies that I've done other videos on that 70% of people when stopping GLP-1 medications gain the weight back, which is why with these shortages, I love Join Fridays because I can pivot from using a brand name like Mounjaro's or if for chronic obesity management care, Zepbound or WEGOVY, and I can pivot over to compounds easily. I get my own prescription here, local pharmacy, when I have the brand name prescription with Zepbound, but with the compound, it's delivered directly to my home with a reputable compound pharmacy. I'm with Red Rock and I love them, and it's been an awesome experience for me. You can use the discount code QUEEN, QUEEN, and I'll link down below in the description link too if you are looking to pivot over to taking compounds because you can't get your brand name. But one of the reasons why I love them, which this study referenced, the Blue Cross Blue Shield study referenced, is having that FaceTime with the healthcare provider to set you up for success. Now, one of the many reasons I love Join Fridays is because they are chronic obesity management care. They're an expert. They're a specialist in that. And so having I can have one of two choices. I can have video chat with my healthcare provider, which I love. I can see eyeball to eyeball over video. Or once I'm on a prescription for a while, I can have async where I can submit a form easily for refill. Because I'm on the highest dose of Zepbound, and then now with compounds, I can send in that async form of where I don't necessarily have to be eyeball to eyeball. The other thing that this Blue Cross Blue Shield study references, people stopped taking GLP-1 medication. Partially, it sounds like from my interpretation, because they didn't have care with it. People who did have care, like having care of endocrinologist or an obesity specialist, there's someone driving around on their motorcycle outside of my house and I want to poke them. Stop. Shoo, you're interrupting my GLP-1 video, shoo. Mr. Fuddy's like unbothered by it all. But going back over to this, this study said about endocrinologists and obesity specialists, people stayed on the drugs and had better treatment plan as a result, right? They had that care. With Join Fridays, they have weekly calls. It's included in the membership price with a dietitian, for example, who has their master's degree in nutrition, who it's not a nutritionist, it's actually a dietitian, which has more education level associated with it. They have weekly calls for body movement and mental health and other things in group coaching calls that are included in the cost of that membership, which is amazing. So not only am I getting my prescription, I'm also having access to this amazing community of support, which this is from what I'm taking out of this Blue Cross Blue Shield study is why people stop taking the medication, which to me is the number one mistake. That, and the other thing I think from interpreting this data is the side effect component. When I was on the Oprah show, they talked about 17% of people stopped taking GLP-1 medication because of side effects. This study is saying 30% of people stopped taking the medication out of 169,000 plus people. And the side effects are 4 major gastrointestinal ones: diarrhea, constipation, nausea, and vomiting. I've never had the vomiting, but I've had the other 3. And for me, just because I've had one gastrointestinal issue on one dose, doesn't mean I'm not going to have another gastrointestinal issue on another dose. Which is why for me, I completely planned on having all of the side effect things at my house. So for diarrhea, typically I'll use my LMNT electrolytes. I'll link the link down below. For constipation, I use 7 types of magnesium. It's one pill, but it has all 7 types in there. That helps with constipation. Nausea, I have talked about how I use ginger water. I cut up ginger and make a delicious water with that. I also use LMNT electrolytes too, but having ginger infused water has been fantastic. And then I take daily multivitamins too, which help out for me for diarrhea and constipation substantially, which the daily multivitamin is Gem that I use, and I'll link a discount link down below as well. Being well prepared for those side effects. If I'm having, for example, blowout diarrhea, being able to talk to a healthcare provider like Join Fridays, so incredibly helpful, because I can address it directly with them as opposed to asking in group chats. And while I'm obsessed with my private group, I'll link it down below. It's totally free. There's thousands of people in that encouraging space. It's one of my free things I do. I work about 20 hours a week on that group because I love it so much. But asking in those group forums is different than talking to your healthcare provider, right? Not taking medical advice from me or for anybody else, always talking to your own healthcare provider. So if, for example, you're having blowout diarrhea, being able to send a message, like with Join Fridays, is so helpful because I can get answers for my specific health issues, right? And if I'm having these side effects, getting that support with those too. I mean, this study to me is fascinating about people stopping the medication. And gosh, you're not, like it says, you're not going to have meaningful weight loss if you stop taking the medication. And for me, I have a GLP-1 deficiency. And by taking a GLP-1 medication, it's helping me with that GLP-1 deficiency, right? So going back over this, I do think that it's interesting and noting that literally 30% of people stop taking it after the first 4 weeks. And I've talked about this before too, of, for me, I went into the mindset of, I don't have to titrate up on the titration dosing schedule. I think everybody's different. Side effects are different. People are different. We come from different varying degrees of obesity. There's a spectrum of that, of where we are with our obesity. And so that patients should be looked at as individuals as opposed to like this lumping of, okay, every robot must titrate up every 4 weeks. Well, if you're titrating up and you're having blowout diarrhea, that does not make sense to me. And so being able to have these conversations with a healthcare provider like Join Fridays using the discount code QUEEN is so helpful, because then you can address those as well, specifically for you. And they can also, for example, one of our group members is like, I had severe nausea. And they went to their provider and they were able to get a prescription for anti-nausea medication. So like super, super helpful information like these of like, you don't have to suffer like with these side effects. There's solutions and resources. And of course, there are some of the black box warning side effects that we all do need to be aware of. And you can consult those if you're taking WEGOVY or Zepbound, things like pancreatitis, appendicitis. There's a thyroid cancer that is a familial genetic thyroid cancer. As well, if it's in your family lineage, you should not be taking GLP-1 medications per the recommendations. So like things, severe side effects like those, but we're learning so much information about GLP-1 medication for things like sleep apnea, kidney disease, strokes, heart attacks, cardiovascular events. I mean, the data just keeps building of how helpful GLP-1 medications are simply by having a GLP-1 deficiency, right? Like, by fixing that, then there's this ripple effect with those too. It's fascinating to me in my group too of people who talk how they're going off with talking with their healthcare providers, like blood pressure medication, like their blood pressure has changed as a result, which clocks and makes sense, right? It all makes sense too. Where within the study I don't necessarily agree with it is that it was a 12-week treatment program, that 30% of people stopped after the first dose at the 4 week or before mark, which is crazy to me. For me personally, and I'm not judging anybody else for their decisions, for me personally, I will be on GLP-1 medication probably the rest of my life with the information I have right now. How one would treat type 1 diabetes, you'd be on medication, or heart disease, you'd be on medication, or cancer, you'd be on medication. For me, this is a lifelong, like the illness is not going away. And so why would I therefore ever stop a GLP-1 medication? So for me, I plan to be on this medication for the rest of my life. And knowing, particularly now with that study that came out, about that 70% of people gain back weight after a year, up to a year of taking GLP-1 medication, that terrifies me. And I definitely would be one of those people, once stopping medication, that would gain the weight back, which many folks have encountered with the Mounjaro shortage and Zepbound shortage. It's one of the many reasons why I love Join Fridays is I want to be on brand name. I want to be on those medications, but being forced because I cannot get it because there is a massive shortage going on until 2025 per Eli Lilly's Q1 2024 investor call. They told us, Eli Lilly told us, the manufacturer of Zepbound, we're going to see shortages until 2025. And as a filming date right now, that's at least 6 months from now. If it's into 2025 mid-year, it could be more than 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. I don't know. They didn't specify on that Q1 2024 Eli Lilly investor call as to when in 2025. But that's why I've gone over to the compound, because I can easily pivot as we go through these shortages. And one of the other questions too for GLP-1 medications of, okay, then just go over to WEGOVY for chronic obesity management treatment. That is also under a shortage too. So being able to pivot as we go through, being able to be adaptable and walking through, I think, is important. But I think the biggest takeaways from this Blue Cross Blue Shield study that I see are twofold. One, financially, that people, like, the cost is $1,000 to over $1,000 per month. And so planning that out before taking a GLP-1 medication with insurance coverage, or Join Fridays has a whole insurance concierge department working on prior approvals, the PAs for it. Or with compounds, obviously, you can use the link down below to see pricing for compounds. And then the second part, one was the cost, and then two was the side effects. And then three, I'd like to add, is the support of, once you, for me, I'll use my I statements. Once I started to get some traction under my belt, figuratively and literally, that I needed ongoing support, like a dietitian, like for body movement, like for the mental health components of losing 88 pounds. That's a lot. And there's a lot of other emotional things that have come with that I don't think necessarily are addressed, but I do think Join Fridays is. Ignore behind me, we've been cleaning and making piles for donation of my clothes that I lost from weight loss. So ignore these piles behind if you just saw them. I've been trying to strategically cover them with my hands so you guys can't see, but I wanted you guys to see Mr. Freddy, because I know you guys miss him. Mr. Freddy? He's like, no, he went on a really long walk. So today, what are you doing today to move you closer to your weight loss goals is your accountability question. For me, it's decluttering. It's getting rid of all of my old clothes that no longer fit, because I've dropped from a size 24 down to a size 14. So 24 to 2022, 22 to 2020 to 18, size, oh, I was trying to count how many sizes that was. It's a bunch. And then also the second component of your accountability is commenting down below. We do an emoji here. It helps me to get to know you better. And also I will pray over you. If you don't believe in prayer, I'll uplift you in positive thought. Our emoji today is going to be dog paws or animal paws. Animal paws. And that will let me know that you've made it this far in the video. And if you've made it this far in the video, I want to get to know you, because I truly do care about our Countess and Count community. I will be doing upcoming goat yoga. You'll see in other videos. It just got released today. It will be here in the Nokesville, Virginia area coming up in June. I've rented out an entire goat farm for the Countess of Shopping community. Tickets will go on sale. I believe tickets will be $75. I need to look for goat yoga. And that's covering the cost of goat's yoga instructor at the farm and admin costs for selling these tickets and things like that. So I will be linking that in upcoming videos if it's not down in the description link below. Would love to have all of our friends come. Tickets will be limited though, because there's only but so much farm space. So that's a lot of clothes to donate, by the way. It's crazy. It's crazy how much my clothes have dropped. I will link down below too, if you're looking to switch over to Join Fridays, my favorite telehealth company, use the discount code QUEEN, Queen. I will link that direct link down below. You can also check out their pricing too for compounds, or if you're looking to stay on your brand name, which is my heart's desire. I cannot wait till the shortage is over to go back to the brand name, but I've been loving being on the compound so far. It's really actually been significantly easier to have the delivery straight to my house, as opposed to spending hours trying to call pharmacies to see if someone has my prescription. So, sweet friends, be kind to yourself, be kind to others. I'm Countess of Shopping. Count my blessings, because life is delicious. I look forward to seeing you soon. Bye, guys.
Join me for the Countess of Shopping Goat Yoga meetup on June 9th. The link for the sales link for Goat Yoga will be linked in the description. Would love to see you there in Nokesville, Virginia.